Chapter 1. 1. The greatest and fundamental means of achieving a good life is Iman, certain belief, and good deeds. Allah the Most High said, "Whoever works righteousness, man or woman, and is a true believer, verily to him will we give a life that is good and pure, and we will bestow on such their reward according to the best of their actions." Al-Nahl. Ayah 94. So Allah, the Most High, informs and promises whoever joins true belief with good and righteous deeds, that he will give him a good and pure life in this world, and a good reward in this world and in the hereafter. The reason behind this is very clear. This is because true believers in Allah, who have a sound belief that gives rise to righteous deeds, and mends the heart and corrects human behavior, and makes good both this world and the hereafter, such a people have the basic elements that guide them in dealing with situations of happiness and joy, and situations of anxiety, sorrow and grief. They gratefully accept situations of happiness and joy, and are thankful, and use them in what is beneficial. When they use them in this manner, they experience additional joy, and they desire the blessings of these things in hope that they remain with them, and also yearn for the good reward of those who are thankful to Allah. This feeling and experience brings with it so much good and blessings, far greater than the joy that is the primary cause of it. On the other hand, in harmful and unpleasant situations, situations of grief and sorrow, they deal with them by resisting what is resistible, and lightening what could be lightened, and they persevere with a beautiful contentment over what they have no power to resist. By this they achieve the benefits of earnest struggle, and gather experience and inner strength, and earn the reward of patience and perseverance, the greatness of which belittles in comparison the distasteful things that befell them. As a result they end up having in place of the unpleasant things, joy and good hope, and a sincere desire in the favors of Allah and His reward. The Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be on him, beautifully expressed this situation in a Sahih Hadith, where he said, "The affair of the believer is really wonderful. All his affairs are good. When he is touched by ease and affluence, he is thankful, and that is good for him, and when he is touched by suffering he is patient, and that is good for him. And this is only for the believer." Muslim reported it. The Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be on him, informs us in this hadith that the good of the believer and his gains, and the excellent benefits of his deeds, are multiplied several-fold in all the things that befall him, be they pleasant or unpleasant. This is why you see two people afflicted by the same ups and downs of life situations, and they differ so widely in the way they encounter them, in accordance with the level of their iman and righteous deeds. The one with iman and righteous deeds encounters both good and bad situations with what we mentioned of thankfulness in good situations, and patience in bad ones, plus the other things that go along with them. As a result of this, he experiences joy and happiness, and grief and sorrow leave him, and he becomes free from misery, anxiety and constriction of the heart, and he lives a good and happy life in this world. The other one, on the other hand, encounters joyful and agreeable situations with insolence, arrogance and rebellion. As a result of this, his behavior deviates, and he becomes just like an animal, encountering his joy with utter greed, and a burning anxiety and restlessness. And despite that, his heart is still not at rest. He is restless for several reasons. He is restless out of fear that the good things will vanish, and out of the feeling of anxiety for the struggle to retain them. He is restless out of the burning urge and desire to acquire more, because the human self by its nature knows no limits to what it desires, and he may acquire them and he may not. Even if he acquires them, the restlessness still persists, because the circle will repeat itself on him viciously. And when he is afflicted with unpleasant things, he is worried, full of despair, fearful and sorrowful. Only Allah knows the degree of the wretchedness of the life he is going through, and the mental and psychological sickness associated with it, and the extent of the fear that would ultimately lead to more horrible and heinous results. This is because he neither has any hope of getting a reward, nor any patience that will console him and lighten his pains. All this is known from human experience. There are many examples in life, which if you reflect upon even one of them, and observe through it human experiences, you will definitely see the wide difference between the true believer who is acting in accordance with his certain belief, and the person who is not like him. This is because the religion of truth strongly urges contentment with Allah's provision, and with whatever he gives his slaves out of his favor and vast generosity. If the believer is afflicted with illness or poverty, or similar tribulations that no individual is free from, He is happy and contented, because of his certain belief, contentment and satisfaction with what Allah has decreed for him. His heart does not quest for what has not been destined to him. He looks at people that are less fortunate than him, and he does not look at those who are above him in worldly riches. By this he might even be happier and more delighted and peaceful than the one who has all his worldly needs met, but has not been gifted with contentment. The opposite is the case of the one who does not act in accordance with Iman. When he is afflicted with poverty or loses some of his worldly needs, you find him in utter despair and wretchedness. Another example is when fear and disturbing events befall a person, you find the one with sound Iman having a firm heart, and he is calm and firmly in control of the situation, by making the best use of his faculties of thought, speech and action, as though he has already prepared himself for the event. This type of reaction puts him at ease, and strengthens his heart. The reaction of the one without Iman, on the other hand, is the direct opposite of this. When he encounters fearful situations, his heart trembles, and his nerves become tense, and his intellect loses its focus. There is nothing inside him except alarm and fear. The outward tenor is increased by his inward restlessness, the degree of which is beyond expression. This type of people among mankind, if they do not acquire some of the natural means at the disposal of every human being for dealing with troubles through life experiences, their energy becomes completely sapped, and they suffer a nervous breakdown. This is because they lack the Iman that encourages patience, especially in situations of difficulty and anxiety. It is true that both the good and the bad, and the believer and the one who rejects faith, both share the common human quality of acquired courage, as well as the innate ability to deal with dreadful situations and lighten their oppressive effects on the self. But the believer, because of his strong belief, patience and reliance and trust in Allah, and his desire to be rewarded by Allah, excels in having qualities that make him more courageous, and soothe more effectively the pangs of terror and the pains of calamity on him. As Allah, the Most High said, "If you are suffering hardships, they too are suffering similar hardships, but you hope from Allah that for which they hope not." An-Nisa. Verse 104. In addition to that, the believers receive from Allah His special help, succor and assistance that will drive away the dread and terror that befell them. Allah, the Most High said, "And be patient. Surely Allah is with those who are patient." Al-Anfal. Verse 46. 2. Among the means of eliminating worry, grief and anxiety is goodness to creation, by words, by deeds, and by all types of good acts. All of these are good and excellent in the sight of Allah, and by them Allah removes worries and anxieties from both the good and the bad, each in accordance with his level of being good to creation. Except that the portion of the believer is more complete and perfect, and he also excels by the fact that his goodness is born out of sincerity to Allah and seeking his reward. As a result, Allah makes the act of doing good and granting it easy for him because of his hope in the goodness with Allah, and he removes from him unpleasant things because of his sincerity and his seeking the reward of Allah. Allah, the Most High said, "There is no good in most of their secret conferences except in him who exhorts to a deed of charity, in Allah's cause, or goodness, or conciliation between people. Whoever does that seeking the pleasure of Allah, we shall bestow on him an immense reward." An-Nisa. Verse 114. Allah, the Most High, informs us that these things are all acts of goodness whosoever does them. And acts of goodness bring with them good, and remove evil. But the true believer, who seeks the reward and pleasure of Allah, for him Allah gives an immense reward. Part of that immense reward is the removal of grief, sorrow and anguish. Chapter 2. 3. Among the means of warding off anxieties arising out of nervousness and the preoccupation of the heart with some sorrowful things, occupying oneself with one activity or another, or with some useful knowledge. This is because doing that will distract the heart away from being immersed in its anxieties. It might even make him forget the things that caused him grief and worry, and he may even experience some happiness and become cheerful. This is also something that is common between both the believer and the non-believer. But the believer is different, because when he occupies himself with the knowledge that he is seeking or giving, or with the good action he is doing, whether it be an act of worship, or a worldly act in which he has a good intention of doing it to seek strength in worshipping Allah, when he does that, he does it out of his belief in Allah, sincerity and seeking the pleasure of Allah. This in itself has the additional effect of warding off grief, worries and anxieties by a divine intervention. We have seen many people afflicted with sorrows and permanent anxieties, to the extent of making them very ill. Their only cure was to make them forget the cause of their sorrow and misery, and be preoccupied with their normal activities. The activity to be preoccupied with should be something pleasing to the self, and one that it yearns for. This makes it more effective in achieving the desired goal, and all knowledge is with Allah. 4. Among the things that ward off worry and anxiety is to concentrate one's attention and concern oneself with the affairs of the present, and to stop being anxious about the future, or grieving over the past. This is why the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be on him, sought refuge in Allah from anxiety and grief. This is in a hadith reported by Bukhari and Muslim. Grief is usually over past events that you can neither bring back nor rectify. Anxiety is usually fear and concern over what will come in the future. Therefore, a person should be the son of the moment, concentrating his energy and attention in the betterment of his existing events and his present moments. Concentrating attention over the affairs of the moment is the necessary cause of their accomplishment, and it is what gets rid of grief and anxiety from the heart. When the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be on him, asks something from Allah, or guides his community to ask a specific thing from Allah, he is exhorting them that together with seeking help from Allah, and having hope in his favor, at the same time they have to work hard and earnestly for the accomplishment of what they asked, or the removal of what they asked to be removed from them. Therefore, making dua, asking something from Allah, should go side by side with action. So the slave strives for what will benefit him in his religion and in his worldly life, and he asks his Lord to make him accomplish his need, and he seeks his help in that. As the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be on him, said, "Strive for what will benefit you, and seek the help of Allah, and do not be incapacitated. And if something afflicts you, do not say, 'If I had done such and such would have happened.' But say, 'This is the decree of Allah, He does what He wills.' This is because if opens the act of Shaitan." Muslim reported it. In this hadith, the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be on him, exhorts us to join between two things. The first is to strive for useful things in all situations, and seek the help of Allah, and not to yield and surrender ourselves to incapacity, because that is harmful negligence. The second is to surrender to Allah over past events that have passed, and witness in them the decree of Allah and His predestination. We see that the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be on him, has delineated two categories of affairs. The first category is affairs that the slave has the ability to accomplish totally or partially, or those that he can avoid completely or at least lighten their burden. For this category, the slave should exert his utmost, and seek the help of his deity. The second category is those affairs over which the slave has no power. For this, the slave should calm himself, and accept what came to him and surrender to Allah. There is no doubt that this is a principle complying with which is a definite means of achieving happiness and keeping worry and grief at bay. Chapter 3. 5. Among the greatest means to achieve the expansion of the heart and its tranquility and satisfaction is abundant remembrance of Allah. Remembrance of Allah has a wonderful effect of bringing expansion and tranquility to the heart, and removing worry and grief from it. Allah, the Most High, said, "Without doubt, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find satisfaction." Al-Ra'd. Verse 28. This is because of the special effect that the remembrance of Allah has over the hearts, and the fact that the slave, when remembering Allah, has the hope of receiving a good reward and recompense from Him.